The photographic paper felt cold and damp to the touch, and the smell of developer seeped into the skin of his fingers. On that winter evening in 1943, Edwin Land held a photograph of his daughter Jennifer, but couldn't show it to her. The paradox, a man whose polarizing filters for military sites helped drop bombs with jeweler-like precision, was powerless before a child's question, "Why can't I see the picture right now?" The entire photographic industry considered instant development technically impossible. The laws of chemistry demanded time. Light-sensitive silver crystals had to undergo an entire chain of reactions. But Land, accustomed to solving problems for the Pentagon, faced a challenge that had no ready-made solutions in textbooks. The problem resembled a chemical labyrinth with no exit. 14 different reagents had to work synchronously within a temperature range of 15 to 30 degrees. A difference of just 1 degree could turn the image into a chemical mess. Engineers at Kodak and Agfa had struggled with this task for decades, but Land approached it differently. His key insight sounded like a revelation in the laboratory. If a child cannot understand why it's impossible, then it must be possible. This was a challenge not just to technology, but to the very way of thinking. Instead of improving existing processes, Land decided to reinvent photography from scratch. He envisioned a cassette where the chemical composition would be enclosed in microscopic containers that would rupture during development. But how to make 14 substances act as a single organism? The secret lay in the emulsion, which was not merely a mixture but a complex, multi-layered system. Each layer had its own function. One handled black tones, another contrast, a third stabilization. And all of this had to happen before your eyes in a matter of minutes. The device that eventually emerged cost as much as a week's wages for the average American, but became a cultural phenomenon. Yet behind the chemical magic lay an even more complex engineering challenge. The camera had to think for the photographer, automatically calculating exposure, controlling chemical temperature, and even ejecting the finished print. This wasn't just a camera, it was an entire factory for producing moments, fitting in the palm of your hand. The story of Polaroid forces a reconsideration of the nature of innovation. Sometimes a breakthrough is born not from complex calculations, but from a simple question that adults had long stopped seeking to answer. But outside the laboratory, a different war was being waged. 30 engineers worked in 3 shifts, creating prototypes that repeatedly turned into chemical waste. The myth of the lone genius shattered against the reality of a collective struggle with the impossible. Each failure was a lesson: too cold, and the reagents fell dormant; too hot, and they went berserk, turning into a poisonous sludge. A young chemist named Harold, who came from Kodak, was certain standard methods should work. He tried to stabilize the process by adding ever more inhibitors and catalysts. But the laboratory journals recorded only new forms of failure: black sheets smelling of sulfur, white papers without a single mark. Sometimes only blurred silhouettes would appear, like ghosts on the film. The secret lay in a temperature trap. A 1-degree difference became a point of no return. At plus 14 degrees C, the reagents froze. At plus 31 degrees, they engaged in chaotic reactions, destroying the image. But why? The answer came from an unexpected source: studying the crystalline structure of the emulsion. It turned out the molecules in the cramped cassette had to perform a strict ballet. 14 different reagents activated in strict sequence, creating a chemical conveyor belt inside a space smaller than a matchbox. The first layer opened pores for the alkaline activator. The second initiated oxidation. The third stabilized the image. And all of this in 60 seconds. Land watched the experiments with growing disappointment. His daughter Jennifer had been waiting for an answer for 3 years. For her, it was a simple question: why can't I see the photo right away? For the engineers, it was a puzzle comparable to creating a miniature chemical plant. It was this childish directness that became the engine, driving Land to invest more resources into the project than into profitable military contracts. Financial analysts were certain the project would ruin the company. Their logic seemed flawless. No one would pay a week's salary for a whim. But Land saw it differently. He understood he was selling not a technology, but a moment. The ability to stop time here and now. The turning point came in February 1947. Skeptics gathered in the laboratory, expecting another failure. But when Harold pressed the button, The ticking of the stopwatch in the silent hall grew louder than any words. On the white sheet, contours began to emerge. First, vague shadows, then clear lines. After 60 seconds, a finished photograph lay before the astonished audience. This was not merely a technical breakthrough. It was visual proof that the impossible was possible. Doubts evaporated along with the chemical smell, giving way to awe. But the real battle was just beginning. They had to transform the laboratory marvel into a product accessible to everyone. The first Polaroid Model 95 weighed almost half a kilogram and cost $90, equivalent to a week's wages for the average American. The paradox: people paid a fortune for a device that did what photo labs offered almost for free. Externally, it looked like an ordinary folding camera, but inside hid 40 precisely synchronized parts. The mechanism had to think for the photographer, automatically calculate exposure, control chemical temperature, and eject the finished print exactly 60 seconds later. The camera felt in hand like a precious scientific instrument, concealing an entire factory for producing moments. This illusion of a simple mechanical device became the foundation of a brilliant business model. Every camera sold created a lifelong customer for chemical cartridges. In the first 5 years, Polaroid sold 900,000 cameras at $89 each, as if the entire population of San Francisco armed itself with photographic factories. But the profit from cartridges stretched out for decades ahead, creating an illusion of invulnerability. Financial analysts didn't understand why was a technology that was supposed to bankrupt the company generating stable income year after year. The secret lay in psychology, not economics. Buyers paid 4 times the price not for photo quality, but for the chance to become a magician. One of the first owners admitted, "I'm not paying for a photo, I'm paying for a miracle." Photography ceased to be a technical process, transforming into a magical ritual. People waited with bated breath as the contours of reality emerged on a white sheet. This was a fundamental shift in perception. The ability to stop time here and now was worth any price. But the true engineering triumph lay ahead. When experts predicted color photography would take 50 years to develop, Polaroid created 8 independent research groups. They worked on different aspects of the problem simultaneously, cutting the half-century forecast down to 15 years of reality. The SX70 model, released in 1972, became the apex of engineering thought. Its sleek casing hid 370 parts, uniting chemistry, optics, and mechanics in one device. The camera's design itself became a work of art, but inside continued the same strict molecular ballet that once made 14 reagents dance in a space smaller than a matchbox. Yet the real Polaroid revolution happened not in the laboratory, but in the minds of consumers. 70% of American families fell captive to chemical cartridges not out of necessity, but due to psychological dependency. The paradox, a technology technically inferior to traditional photography, created a cultural phenomenon. Marketing research couldn't explain this phenomenon. People paid 4 times the price for prints that faded faster than regular photographs. The illusion of free choice concealed a deeper need, the magic of instant results. Every second American family owned a camera, creating a network of interdependence. People showed freshly taken photographs, turning private moments into public performances. This wasn't photography. It was a ritual, waiting with bated breath as reality's contours emerged on a white sheet. What exactly kept people coming back to these expensive chemical cartridges again and again? Kodak, a photographic giant with a century of history, decided it could simply copy the technology. Their logic seemed flawless. A giant should win any battle. But patent protection proved stronger than financial might. While multi-year legal battles dragged on, Polaroid was winning the war against the industrial titan. Every court document became a weapon in the fight for survival. The small, innovative company proved the legal system could protect an inventor, but the legal victory concealed a strategic defeat. The real threat came not from competitors, but from a new paradigm of perception. Digital cameras offered something more valuable than instantaneity, infinity, and freedom from material constraints. The resolution of early digital shots seemed laughable compared to chemical photographs, but people were willing to sacrifice quality for unlimited possibilities. Why couldn't the company that created a cultural phenomenon adapt to the new reality? The logic of corporate decisions seemed reasonable at the time. The business model based on selling chemical cartridges generated stable income year after year, but the profitable system turned into a financial curse. The empire built on the instant did not survive the era of eternity. A fundamental shift in market conditions rendered chemical magic an anachronism. Success became an obstacle to survival. At what precise moment did the technology cease to be magic and become just technology? When the last Polaroid film factory closed in 2008, it seemed a logical conclusion. The digital age had defeated chemical magic. But the paradox wasn't that the technology became obsolete. It was that the very concept of the instant had changed beyond recognition. What was once precious and unique, a single print born before your eyes, became commonplace in a world of endless copies. Financial reports from those years show a strange pattern. While cartridge sales dropped 40% annually, analysts continued to believe in the viability of the business model. Their logic seemed ironclad. Polaroid had 15 million loyal users. The first digital cameras with their muddy pixels couldn't compete with the quality of a chemical print. But they missed a fundamental shift. People stopped valuing the physical artifact. An instant that required a 60-second wait was no longer an instant. The cultural break happened almost imperceptibly. In 2003, the number of digital photos surpassed analog for the first time. But the real blow came not from image quality, but from a change in ritual. The development process, once a magical act, came to be seen as an inconvenient delay. Why wait when you can see the result immediately on a screen? Why store boxes of photos when they fit on a tiny memory card? The illusion of magic dissipated when instantaneity became the standard. Polaroid's legacy proved more durable than its technology. Jennifer Land's question, "Why can't I see the photo right now?" finds its answer today in every person's pocket. But the paradox is that in gaining instant results, we lost something important. A digital image can be erased, corrected, remade. A chemical print was testimony, unique and unchanging. Modern selfies and instant social media posts are the logical continuation of the same idea, but stripped of its material soul. The lesson of Polaroid's collapse is more complex than it seems. This isn't a story about a big company losing to innovation. It's the paradox of success becoming a trap. The business model based on selling cartridges was genius, but its stability was an illusion. The company became a hostage to its own profitable system. When the world changed, it couldn't abruptly abandon what brought in millions. Modern startups study this history as a warning. Technology cycles are shorter today than ever before. What seems like a breakthrough today may be a dead end tomorrow. The real challenge isn't to create innovation, but to maintain the ability to constantly reevaluate it. Which of today's impossible technologies will become tomorrow's relics? Perhaps the very smartphones that once buried Polaroid. The final paradox is that we still admire Polaroid not for its technical specifications, but for its proof of human inventiveness. Chemical magic lost the war to silicon, but the idea remained. The story of complete collapse became a source of inspiration. Every time we take an instant picture, we are, without realizing it, answering that very child's question asked on a winter evening in 1943. The circle has closed, but the story continues in new forms of human curiosity. That first photograph from 1943 outlived the technology itself. Today, only 3 factories worldwide still produce film for Polaroid. The paper has yellowed at the edges, but the girl's smile remains as vivid as the day chemistry first learned to cheat time. Jennifer's childish question didn't demand a technical solution. It challenged the very principle of delayed results. Land looked at that very photograph, which became a symbol not of an answer, but of a new question. The contrast between the ephemerality of the chemical process and the eternity of the cultural phenomenon it created proved striking. The 14 reagents in the cartridge worked like clockwork. One malfunction, and instead of a photograph, you got a murky puddle. A technology killed by its own success in creating instant gratification. Polaroid pitted its secret chemical formulas against the soulless ones and zeros of the digital era. The very desire for immediate results, spawned by Polaroid, ultimately found a more perfect embodiment. In 1978, 70% of American families owned a Polaroid camera, creating a cultural phenomenon that digital could only replicate 25 years later. The irony was that what made Polaroid iconic, instantaneity, is what also destroyed it. How many of your digital photos will outlive a chemical print? The ticking timer on the camera counted not seconds, but a new era of human impatience. Land invented not a camera, but a new relationship with time, the ability to compress waiting to 60 seconds. The real breakthrough wasn't the chemical miracle, but psychological reprogramming. The very nature of the photographic moment changed. Patient anticipation of development collided with the narcissism of instant results. This technology taught us impatience, but lost the main secret, the value of waiting. An entry in Land's laboratory journal. My daughter asked, "Why wait?" I didn't know the answer, but I understood. The question was right. Polaroid's true legacy lies not in technology museums, but in every notification on your phone. A child's "Why can't I see it now?" became the DNA of the digital age. A 3-year-old girl's question turned out to be the seed from which a forest of digital technologies grew. Land understood, what matters are not the answers, but the questions that change reality. We are still waiting for the next photograph to develop, but now it's the photograph of the future. We live in a world created by that winter question. Every time we press our smartphone button, we are answering Jennifer Land. But the paradox is that in gaining instantaneity, we lost the magic of anticipation. A chemical print was a unique event. A digital shot became an infinite possibility. Polaroid didn't just change photography, it changed our perception of time. The question, "Why wait?" proved prophetic. Today we wait for nothing. Not photos, not letters, not news. Instantaneity has become the new normal. Polaroid proved that technologies come and go, but human curiosity remains the eternal engine of progress. That very childish question continues to live in every new invention, in every attempt to make the world faster and more accessible. The story of Polaroid is not a tale of obsolete technology, but a parable about how a simple why can overturn an entire industry. And the next why is already sounding somewhere nearby, perhaps in the voice of another child asking about something adults consider impossible.